What is up, boys? And we are back for the full card predictions for UFC 326. And a reminder that we have profited 4 weeks in a row inside premium, which has been crazy. We have made over 9 units during this time. So if you want to start making money on the UFC and you want to start this weekend for UFC 326, my premium link is in the description below and in the link in bio. Join and I'll see you inside and let's make some of that money. Also, my link to the free Discord is there as well, where we have been doing pretty well on free bets of the week. And the Beast Bet of the Week series is 3-1 as well. So if you haven't seen that already, go check that out. That's my largest free bet that I give out every single week. Now, let's get into the predictions. First fight of the card, we got Luke Fernandez versus Rodolfo Bilardo. Give me Luke Fernandez here to win this one by TKO. And I'm going to say he gets it done in round 1. Now, it's pretty hard to make a very confident prediction for this fight, simply because Luke Fernandez hasn't really shown too much. He's not the most experienced fighter. But from what I've seen from him, he has some serious knockout power. We saw that in his Dana White Contender Series fight. He got a round 1 KO. He looks powerful. He looks athletic. And Rodolfo Bilardo here is someone that's shown to be very, very hittable. He's been rocked multiple times. And he did have an alright performance in his last fight against Navajo Sterling, though he did still lose. You can't trust Bilardo here, in my opinion. He got dropped by Jimmy Crute, by Ihor Peteria, of all people. Very badly aging kind of performance there. And then he's been knocked out twice by Vitor Petrino. So the guy's hittable. The guy is kind of chinny. And you just got to back Luke Fernandez here to get the round 1 KO. Not super confident in that prediction because we haven't seen too much from Fernandez. But that's going to be my pick. Now, we got Rafael Tobias versus Dio Nogase. If you didn't know, Rafael Tobias is the Beast Bet of the Week. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm super low on Dio Nogase. I think that this guy absolutely sucks, and his 2 UFC performances so far have been horrible. In his UFC debut, he opened up as a big favorite against Brenderson Ribeiro, and that makes sense because Brenderson Ribeiro is a very, very low-level UFC fighter. And in that fight, Ribeiro, who is definitely not known for his power at all, was able to drop Nogase clean with a right hand, as Nogase's defense was very bad. And in that second round, Brenderson Ribeiro, a guy with a massive grappling hole, was able to find a Kimura on Dio Nogase and submit him. And in that fight, as that fight went on, Dio has a tick to constantly poke himself in the eye, and he just kept on doing it, and that seriously done a lot of damage. And I'm not even joking; it done a lot of damage to himself, just poking himself in the eye. And I don't see how you can win fights at the UFC level with such a big tick like that. And then in his next fight, he fought Uran Saltobardiev, who isn't a bad fighter, but for him to get taken down by Uran so easily and submitted like that was absolutely pathetic. So 2 fights in the UFC, he's shown bad striking defense and even worse submission defense. And he's taking on Rafael Tobias here, who I haven't seen the most tape out of, but very solid performance on the Dana White Contender Series. And the fights that I have seen from him, he looks strong, he looks big, he looks powerful and athletic, and he has a good submission ability. So because of all those things and how bad Dio has performed, I am taking Rafael Tobias as the Beast Bet of the Week here. I think there's a ton of value on him. Yes, there is a bit of risk because he is a bit unproven, and Dio does have some power, but I think Tobias is going to get it done here. I think he takes him down and probably finds a submission in round 1. That's going to be my prediction for that fight. Next fight on the card, we have Sumaderji versus Jesus Aguilar, and give me Sumaderji to win this fight by decision. I think this is a pretty simple one on what's the most likely scenario in this fight. Sumaderji is a very long-rangey striker for flyweight, and it is hard to hit him, man. Kevin Borjas barely even touched this guy, and Borjas is not a bad striker by any means. We saw him have an alright performance in his last fight, and in the fight before that, he fought Mitch Raposo. Mitch Raposo was barely able to have any success on the feet. Now, I do think Jesus Aguilar is pretty decent. He has a lot of dog in him. He will push the pace, and I like that about him. He shows a lot of fight. He scrambles well, and he throws good volume. But in this fight here, I think that Sumaderji is going to be way too long. He's going to be landing the jab. He's going to be landing the leg kicks. And his range is just simply going to be too much. And Sumaderji is going to pick him apart from the outside and win this one by decision. We've seen Sumaderji go to a very close fight with Charles Johnson that, to be honest, he arguably could have won, especially if he didn't get dropped in that second round. And that's Charles Johnson, a very high-level fighter. Now, there is a bit of concern with his takedown defense, but I think it's been significantly improving under Team Alpha Male. His takedown defense has looked pretty solid, though he has been submitted multiple times. So Jesus Aguilar, if he can get the grappling going here, he could be live for a submission. But I'm going to say Sumudaji defends the takedowns relatively easy. If he gets taken down, he gets right back up. And he outstrikes Jesus Aguilar on the feet to win this fight by a pretty clear decision. Next one, we got Cody Durden versus, I'm not even going to attempt to say this guy's name, but I'm actually going to pick Cody Durden as an underdog here, which is kind of crazy considering how bad Cody Durden's run's been. But Turman Dembrel's is not impressive to me whatsoever. I watched back the tape on this guy, and his lone fight in the UFC was a split decision loss to Carlos Hernandez. Carlos Hernandez is not a good flyweight. He's been cut from the UFC. And the thing about Turman Dembrel, in my opinion, is he's just not that good. Yeah, he has some power, but to be honest, this guy's grappling defense isn't good. We've seen him be taken down and held down by pretty low-level opponents. And on the feet, he's very wild and very sloppy. He comes forward, he throws big looping shots, but he can get hit clean. And just his skill level overall, I don't think he's a high-level fighter, man. His takedown defense isn't there. He can get controlled. His striking isn't there. And I think Cody Durden's going to be a much better striker. I think his boxing's a lot better. And I think Cody Durden can also have the wrestling advantage. If he can get some takedowns, I think he can definitely control Turman Dembrel. Now, the reason that Cody Durden's an underdog and why this is such a risky pick is because Cody Durden's durability. We've seen the man be up in fights. In his last fight against Nascimento, he was doing pretty well. In his fight against Bruno Silva, he was dominating that fight. But time and time again, his durability has failed him. He's been getting finished a lot lately. And even when he's winning in fights, he finds a way to lose, which is just a horrible thing to do as a fighter. And he's took a lot of damage throughout his career. So he could show up as a pretty bad version of himself, and his durability could be completely cooked. And Turman Dembrel could definitely find a finish. But having said all that, I do think Cody Durden is the better fighter. And if he can avoid putting himself in too much danger here, I think he should be too good on the feet and on the ground. And I'm going to pick him as an underdog to get this one done, most likely by decision. Next fight on the card, we got Alberto Montes versus Ricky Tercios, and give me Montes to win this one by submission in this fight. Now, I like a lot of this stuff that Ricky Tercios brings to the table. He's a wild man. He pressures really well. He does not quit. He has a lot of dog in him, and he pushes a high volume for the full 15 minutes, and he gets in your face and makes you work. But having said all that, there is still a lot of negatives to his game. He is very weak in terms of punching power. He does not have much of a finishing threat on the feet at all. And he can get taken down and controlled for large periods. And he does leave a lot of defensive openings on the feet. And he's just not the most high-level striker at all, to be honest. He can be pretty sloppy. And Alberto Montes, from what I've seen from him, he looks solid everywhere. On the feet, he seems sharp enough. In his Dana White Contender Series fight, he was defending really well. He was countering nicely at moments with right hands. And he looked pretty technical on the feet. And in the grappling, this guy has a nasty submission game, particularly with his anaconda chokes. He always goes for it. He's very quick to go for it. And he has a very good ability to do so. He has multiple finishes by that submission. And that's going to be very dangerous in this fight. So while I do think Tercios' pressure could potentially get to Montes on his UFC debut and could overwhelm him, I'm going to say Montes is solid enough to withstand that pressure, to stay there, to land the cleaner shots on Tercios, to counter him, to potentially hurt him on the feet, to land more damage. And if the fight goes to the ground, I think he's more than live for a submission. So that's what I'm going to say here. I think Montes gets this one done by his signature anaconda choke, and he wins this one by decision. Now moving up the card, we got Deontay Johnson versus Cody Brundage, and this is a pretty simple prediction. I got Deontay Johnson to win this one by round 1 KO. Now I do want to say Deontay Johnson has looked pretty green from the tape I've watched. His striking movements are very weird. He moves on the back foot a lot and moves around a lot. And technically, he doesn't look very good, to be honest. He throws a lot of looping shots, but I've got to give it to him. The man has some freakish power, and he looks super strong as well. And Cody Brundage, he's not it. He's had a couple of alright performances in the UFC, but if he can't consistently take you down or hold you down or land a big bomb, he quits nearly every single time. We saw that against Cam Morrison. He just accepts the back foot, and if you give him any resistance, he's going to curl up in a ball and get TKO'd. And that's what I see happening here. I think Johnson's going to be on the front foot. Brundage is going to get backed up against the cage. Johnson is going to throw his big bombs, and I think he's going to hurt Brundage. Brundage is going to shell up, and Deontay Johnson gets a round 1 KO. Now, Cody Brundage does have some serious power himself. There is always a chance that he can catch Johnson. Johnson does leave himself open, so that is possible. And maybe Johnson's grappling just isn't there. but I kind of doubt all of these things. I think Johnson is probably the biggest lock on the card in my opinion, and I think him to get the TKO should be pretty safe here. Though, he did get a submission in his last fight, which could be interesting, but give me Johnson by round 1 KO. Next fight on the card, we got Cody Garbrandt versus Zhao Long, and give me Zhao Long to win this one by decision. Now, I don't think Cody Garbrandt is completely washed. Obviously, he's not in his prime, but even in his last fight against Randy Barcelos, he looked pretty sharp in round 1. He still has the hand speed, but in that fight, in rounds 2 and 3 in that fight, he just looked stuck in the mud. Randy Barcelos was able to pressure him, and Cody Garbrandt really didn't know what to do at all. He was just stuck there, not throwing volume, getting hit, not being able to get off the cage, and that was pretty concerning. And he has been pretty low volume, especially in his recent fights. I think Zhao Long has a lot of dog in him. He'll throw a lot of volume. He will stay with the forward pressure. The guy's pretty hittable though, and he's lost some pretty close decisions, so that is a bit concerning how he's consistently losing these split decisions. So in this fight, I think both guys' takedown defense is actually pretty good. Zhao Long showed great takedown defense in his last fight, and Brondage's takedown defense against Barcelos was pretty solid. So I think it's going to be a striking matchup here. I think Cody Garbrandt could look good early. He should have a speed advantage. Zhao Long does leave himself open defensively quite a bit, so he should be able to land some clean shots there. But I think as the fight goes on, Zhao Long's going to be in his face. He's a younger guy, the hungrier guy, took a lot less damage in his career, so I think he's really going to push the pace in rounds 2 and 3 here and just get ahead on the numbers against Cody Garbrandt, who's getting up there in age and hasn't showed the volume in his recent fights. I think it's a pretty competitive fight though. Wouldn't be surprised at all if Cody Garbrandt can get a victory here, but I'm going to pick Zhao Long to win this one by decision, and that's what I'm going to say. 29-28, close competitive decision, but Zhao Long gets it done based on activity. Now we got a rematch to kick off the main card. Bruno Ferreira versus Gregory Rodriguez. Give me Gregory Rodriguez to win this one by TKO, but I think Bruno Ferreira is more than live as an underdog in this fight. Now let's go back to that first fight. That fight was a lot earlier in their careers. It was about 3 years ago, and Gregory Rodriguez came in there as a pretty big favorite. This was Bruno Ferreira's UFC debut. Gregory Rodriguez started on the front foot. He was landing shots, but the thing about Gregory Rodriguez is as much damage as he inflicts and as dangerous as he is, he also leaves himself open and he doesn't move his head well at all. And Bruno Ferreira was able to catch him coming in. Gregory Rodriguez was standing straight. Bruno lands a clean shot and knocks him out. Since that fight, both of them have done majority winning inside the UFC. And I think both of these guys are coming in here with quite a lot of momentum. Bruno Ferreira is coming off a decision victory over Vettori. Rodriguez is coming off a decision victory over Roman Kopylov. And I think this is going to be a fight where Gregory Rodriguez is looking to implement that forward pressure early, similar to the first fight. And Bruno Ferreira is going to start on the back foot. I think Gregory Rodriguez will land more volume with his shots. He will land some straight punches, land some shots to the body. And I think Bruno Ferreira is going to be the one kind of picking his moments like he does. He's often on the back foot looking to blitz in and find a big shot here. Now, in terms of who is the worst chin, I think Rodriguez is a bit chinny, man. And I'm a bit concerned for his chin in this fight. And I think if Bruno Ferreira could catch him like he did in the first fight or blitz in, he could hurt Rodriguez and finish him. We've seen Rodriguez hurt many times. We've seen him finished by pretty low-level fighters like Jordan Williams. Cannonier finished him not so long ago, but that was more due to his cardio. But still, we've seen Rodriguez finished a lot of times, and Bruno Ferreira did finish him in that last fight. So Rodriguez may be a bit hesitant, and Ferreira may be pretty confident to exchange here. But I think Rodriguez has a better skill set. I think technically on the striking, Rodriguez is the better striker. I think he throws more output. He will be on the one on the front foot. And I think if this fight goes longer, especially Rodriguez will be the one having more success on the feet. In terms of the grappling, it's pretty interesting because both guys have decent grappling in their own ways, but they don't use it too much. We've seen Rodriguez use it in some fights where he can get takedowns like he did against Christian Leroy Duncan, but he's been mainly a striker, and so is Bruno Ferreira. Both these guys should have decent submission ability, but I think it will cancel out in this fight, so I think it's going to be a striking battle, and I lean ever so slightly to Gregory Rodriguez not getting hit with a big punch like he did, learning his mistakes from last time, and as the fight goes on, I expect him to land the more volume, land some big shots, and probably get Bruno Ferreira out of there. But Bruno Ferreira is more than live to knock out Rodriguez as well. And I think a sneaky angle for this fight is this fight to go the distance. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities. Like Bruno Ferreira in his last couple fights, they've been going a bit longer. His last fight was a decision, same as Gregory Rodriguez. So if both of them are very respectful for each other's power, I think we could see a close competitive decision, which isn't not ridiculous to say, but give me Rodriguez to win this one by TKO. Close fight, hard one to call, but that's going to be my prediction. Now we got Michael Johnson versus Drew Dober. And give me Michael Johnson to win this one by decision in this fight. I think Michael Johnson's hand speed is simply going to be too much for Drew Dober. And I know it's hard to count out Drew Dober. He's pulled off upsets many, many times before. But in his last fight against Kyle Prepelic, I was not impressed with him at all. He had a good round 1, but in that round 2, Prepelic was kind of taking over. And then in round 3, some weird events unfolded where Drew Dober was able to get a TKO. But it looked like Kyle Dorcas was still recovering from a nut shot and kind of wasn't able to recover from that in time. And then Drew Dober was able to TKO him off that. But in that round 2, Kyle Prepelic, who is a very, very slow striker, was able to land and have a lot of success against Drew Dober. And Kyle Prepelic is another southpaw, so that could be potentially a bit of a weakness to Drew Dober, as we saw him getting hit with a lot of clean shots. And Drew Dober's just never had the best defense. He's very hittable, and he takes a lot of damage, and I think his chin has also got a lot worse. We've seen that in the fight against Manuel Torres, in the fight against Matt Frivola, where he got chinned brutally in those fights. Took a lot of damage in that Gene Silva fight. And I think Michael Johnson's just going to be a lot faster than him. We saw his hand speed on display against Daniel Zellhuber. Now that win isn't aging the best, but he still looked very good in that fight. Showed great boxing, and he's going to have a significant speed advantage against Drew Dober. I think when they exchange, Drew Dober's going to get hit with a lot of punches by Johnson's superior speed, especially in the pocket. I think out of range, he'll be hit with the jab, hit with the straights to the body. And I just think Johnson's going to be too clean for Dober, land the shots, land the volume, kind of bust up Drew Dober and win this one by decision. Now, Drew Dober's always live for a knockout, and we have seen Johnson knocked out quite a lot of times before, so that's absolutely live, and I wouldn't count Drew Dober out at all. But I just think Johnson's hand speed is going to be too much for him, and I think he wins this one by decision. Now, moving up, we got Raul Rosas Jr. versus Rob Font. This is a good matchup, and give me Raul Rosas Jr. to win this one by decision. I think Rob Font's been doing well in his past couple of fights. I think he's showed improved takedown defense. But the thing is, he's still getting taken down. In that Kyler Phillips fight, he got taken down and controlled for that first round. And he got taken down a few other times in that fight. He showed good get-up ability, but he still got taken down multiple times. In that Gene Matsumoto fight, he got taken down 6 times. And now, I got to admit, his takedown defense looked good for the most part, and his get-up ability looked really good in that fight. But Gene Matsumoto is not the best control grappler. He's taking on Raul Rosas Jr. here, who, when he takes you down, he controls very well. And I think he's going to take Rob Font down eventually. He may struggle, but I think he gets his fight to the ground. And when he's on the ground, I think he's going to be able to control Rob Font for extended periods of time in this matchup. Now, Raul Rosas Jr.'s ground and pound is very weak and very lacking, and he's had a couple performances which just haven't been impressive at all, where when he gets his opponents down, all he does is control, doesn't really threaten with submissions, doesn't really throw any ground and pound. For example, that Vince Morales fight and the fight before that against Alatong, who was it? I forgot his name, but that Chinese fighter, not a high-level guy, and he didn't look good in that fight. So I think if Rob Font is able to keep this on the feet long enough, he gets in his face, pumps out the jab, pumps out the pressure, lands his boxing shots, he can absolutely win a damage-based decision or win by TKO. But I'm going to trust in Raul Rosas Jr. to make improvements in this fight. I'm going to trust him to take Rob Font down, as we've seen him do consistently in his UFC career. He has a 43% takedown defense. I think Raul Rosas Jr. takes him down enough and controls him enough to win this fight by decision. And that's going to be my prediction. Now moving on to the co-main event, we got Reinier de Ridder versus Caio Borralho. I'm giving Caio Borralho to win this one by knockout. And Caio Borralho is not a TKO guy. He's more of a decision-style fighter, to be honest. But I think stylistically, he matches up really well against Reinier de Ridder here. Reinier de Ridder has had a lot of success in the UFC by being way bigger than his opponents, being able to manipulate them in the clinch with his size, and be able to wear on his opponents with big knees in the clinch and weighing down on them. For example, in that Bo Nickel fight, he was so much bigger than Bo Nickel, and that really played into his game. In that Robert Whittaker fight, he was a lot bigger than Robert Whittaker, and that really played into his game. And in that Brendan Allen fight, in his moments of success, he was a lot bigger than Brendan Allen in that fight. Now, I know size isn't everything, but when you combine the fact that Caio Borralho is a very solid grappler himself, I think Reinier de Ridder is going to struggle implementing his grappling-heavy game plan here. And I think he's going to struggle to get Caio Borralho down, especially if he's shooting out in the open. Reinier de Ridder does not have the best traditional takedowns, so I think his best bet is to get him up against the cage, clinch him up, and try and trip him up. But I think Caio Borralho's takedown defense, he's a very solid grappler himself, will hold up strong for the most part. And considering that I think Caio Borralho and Reina de Ritter are going to spend quite a bit of time striking here. And I know Reina de Ritter has showed some crafty moments on the feet. The guy is slow, and he has horrible reactions to punches. And we've seen that in his fights against Jarrell Mearshart. In Robert Whittaker, got dropped really bad, nearly finished in that fight, and he just isn't a good defensive striker. And when Caio Borralho, I know Caio Borralho is not a knockout artist, but he's going to have a significant speed advantage, and he's going to land a lot of shots on Reina de Ritter. And he's fighting his fellow. Caio Borralho is a southpaw as well. I want to touch on that because when Reina de Ritter's striking looked worse, it was against GM3, and GM3 was able to land a lot of shots from the southpaw stance. I think that left hand landed a lot on Reina de Ritter, and that's absolutely going to be there for Caio Borralho. And I could see this fight playing out similarly to the Paul Craig fight. They keep it on the feet. Borralho looks way quicker, is able to find his timing, and is able to find the TKO, and that's how I see this fight going down. Now, I'm not completely counting out Reina de Ritter. The guy is an elite grappler, and he is absolutely massive for the division. If he can get Caio Borralho down, he could control him and could have a lot of success with the grappling. But I think it's a big if, and we've seen how bad his striking defense and his reactions are. So I think the logical play here is to take the Caio Borralho side as a more well-rounded fighter. Even though he isn't the most proven fighter, he has got a victory over Jared Cannonier over the 5 rounds. He has great cardio, which is another thing about Reina de Ritter. We've seen Reina de Ritter gas out multiple times now and quit against Brendan Allen, against Antonio Malakun. So I think that could be an absolute possibility here against Caio Borralho. And also, Caio Borralho's last fight against Marvov was actually pretty competitive on the feet, which is not a bad look at all. That was a competitive fight. Yes, Borralho lost. Yes, he was behind on the numbers, but he stayed in there and he didn't look too bad. So I think Caio Borralho gets this one done by TKO. Of course, the decision's live as well, but I like Caio Borralho in this matchup. Now, moving on to the main event, we've got Max Holloway versus Charles Oliveira 2. And this fight is super interesting to me because the big question mark is, can Charles Oliveira get Max Holloway down? And we have seen Max Holloway get taken down before a couple times by Volkanovski. He did get taken down by a couple times by Ilia Topuria. But we've never seen Max Holloway get controlled on the ground. Now, these grapplers are not the best control grapplers at all. But the fact that we haven't seen Max Holloway ever get controlled on the ground in the UFC, I know he hasn't faced a serious grappler. His closest thing to Oliveira is Brian Ortega, which you just can't compare whatsoever. But the fact that we've never seen him controlled and his takedown defense has looked consistently solid throughout his UFC career, you have to assume it's going to be pretty solid in this fight. And Charles Oliveira is a good wrestler. We saw that, for example, in the Gamrot fight, where he took him down and submitted him and looked great. But there has been moments where he has got his takedowns defended. We saw that against against Ilia Topuria. Ilia Topuria defended him. Dustin Poirier was able to defend his takedowns early. And I think the safer assumption to make here is that Max Holloway can defend the takedowns, and even if he gets taken down, he doesn't get absolutely dominated on the ground. Now, that is a big assumption to make because we could absolutely see Charles Oliveira go out here, take him down, show him levels on the ground, and even submit him. But considering Max Holloway, that has never happened to Max Holloway. We've never even seen him controlled for an extended period of time. You've got to give Max Holloway the benefit of the doubt in this kind of scenario. And on the feet, it's not even really a question, in my opinion, who is going to get the better of the striking exchanges. Yes, Charles Oliveira is dangerous. He always has that power in his hands. But Max Holloway, in my opinion, even though he's shown a bit of a declining chin, is going to be way too good on the feet for Charles Oliveira. I think Max Holloway is going to be moving around a lot. He's improved on his defense in his past few fights. He's looked very slick. And I think as long as his fight's on the feet, Charles Oliveira is going to be made look silly and going to be a punching bag. I think Max Holloway has some of the best straight punches in the UFC. His boxing combinations have always been some of the best we have ever seen. And I think he's going to be pumping out the jab, landing the right hand, hitting Charles with absolute ease, ripping Charles to the body, which Charles leaves his body open, and Max Holloway puts the body straights together really nice, especially off his jab. Max is going to get his jab landing. Everything's going to build off that jab, and I think he's going to land so much volume. And I think he's probably going to finish Charles Oliveira, especially with the added power that we've seen at 155. So I think Max Holloway is live here to get this one by TKO. I think that's the most likely outcome. I'm definitely not counting out Charles Oliveira at all because one takedown is all it takes and he could submit him, control him, and he does have multiple paths to victory in this fight. But I think Max Holloway is a side that I'm going to have to pick. I think he gets this one by TKO, and as long as this fight stays on the feet, I think he's going to make Charles Oliveira look absolutely silly. Let me know what you guys think about all of my predictions in the comments down below. And one last reminder, if you want to start cashing the bets with me and the boys inside Premium, you know what to do. Click the link in the description or in my bio, and I'll see you inside, and let's make some money on UFC 326. Let's go.